Hello, everyone. Here we are with our good friend James Royer. He's the director of the Council on Geostrategy, a very important new think tank in the UK. James knows a lot about Chile. He's been here. He's been studying Chile for recent years. And sometimes we try to get our countries together. And in this opportunity, I want to ask James about this new alliance between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States called AUKUS that right now is making big news across the Indo-Pacific. In that order of things, James, I want to ask you, what is the reason that leads the United Kingdom to join this alliance?
Good to be with you, Juan Pablo. Yes, so AUKUS, from my understanding, the idea for it came some months ago, back in March, when the Australians approached the UK to talk about the possibility of developing nuclear submarine propulsion technology for their next generation of nuclear submarines. Of course, the threat environment around Australia has changed fundamentally over the last 5 years, particularly as the People's Republic of China has become more assertive in the Indo-Pacific region, and as Australia in particular has been targeted by Beijing. So the Australians, and I think they were quite, say, unnerved by the length of time that's lapsed since they began the negotiations with France to procure the diesel submarines from France, that they wanted something different and they wanted to speed up the acquisition process. So they approached the UK. The UK and Australia together then approached the United States, and the three countries came to an agreement as to how this would be facilitated. Now, the idea is that Britain, Australia, and the United States will cooperate in a range of areas beyond also nuclear submarine technology, although that will be the sort of centerpiece, but it could potentially expand in the future as well, to look at other things such as cyber, artificial intelligence, long-throw cruise missiles, and cooperation in other related areas. And that this, I wouldn't call it an alliance. It has been called an alliance in a very informal sense, but there's no treaty guarantee involved. It's an agreement between the three countries that creates a structured long-term cooperation in a very sensitive area of military technology, to draw the United Kingdom into the region permanently, to solidify the United States' focus on the Indo-Pacific as it leaves Afghanistan and those legacy conflicts in the Middle East throughout the 2000s and the 2010s, and empowers Australia in a new era. And Australia developing this new technology, or this existing technology, sorry, but in a new context, will greatly empower the country in the naval domain and give it a nuclear submarine reach that previously it didn't have, and will also provide military capabilities that previously it didn't have, which greatly in turn empowers the idea of a free and open Indo-Pacific.
How this new group of countries or this agreement fits inside the global Britain strategy? That is one of your favorite topics.
Yes, absolutely. No, I mean, look, Australia, Britain, and the United States have cooperated very extensively for many years. I mean, we know, that there's the Five Eyes intelligence sharing arrangements, which of course also include New Zealand and Canada. There's very deep cooperation that is extended out of that into the military domain, the naval domain, even the air domain. And there's a great deal of interoperability that's been facilitated through those arrangements between the five English-speaking powers. And in fact, there's possibly deeper interoperability between those five than between any other 5 countries in the world. The thing is, it's not really treaty bound. There's not any organization or alliance in the form of NATO or anything like that. But there's just a deep amount of trust between them, and they have shared interests, shared history, shared values, all of those things which bind them together. But AUKUS is new because it, as I said earlier, it facilitates long-term cooperation and expectations of cooperation between the three countries, and it creates a new caucus even that other forms of cooperation that could include other countries as well will eventually potentially be bound into, in the same way that the UK-US alliance during the Cold War was at the crux of the broader NATO alliance. AUKUS could be, as time rolls on and the Indo-Pacific becomes more competitive, it could be the sort of the caucus of cooperation between other countries as well. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to actually join AUKUS, but it will facilitate that kind of cooperation. Now, for global Britain, or the idea of a more engaged Britain that was pushed in the integrated review that the British government published back in March, as I said in my answer to the previous question, I think it basically, the thing that really comes from it is it draws the UK into the region almost permanently. This is not something that's just here today and gone tomorrow. And many analysts have argued or have asked, both in the UK and in the Indo-Pacific region among partners and allies, they've asked whether the carrier strike group, for example, organized around HMS Queen Elizabeth, which is currently in the Far East, whether that will, it's a permanent British commitment. Of course, it's not, because it will eventually go back to the UK. But whether the UK eventually will tire of its interests or its commitment to the Indo-Pacific tilt, and it will sort of go home or focus on other areas such as the Euro-Atlantic. And I think what the British government is trying to demonstrate with AUKUS is that this cooperation, or this focus of the UK, this British tilt, is permanent. It's here to stay. And it's only a part of the tilt, because there's also the deployment of patrol ships permanently, or at least for the next 5 years, to Southeast Asia. They're currently on the way. And then there's going to be additional naval deployments arranged around aircraft carriers and amphibious ships over the years to come. But I think this is the demonstration of the permanent commitment that the UK has in the region, and also the build-up of that commitment, because this should be seen, I think, as the start of that permanence, not the final destination or anything like that. So it realizes global Britain because it creates this permanent kind of umbilical cord that links Britain to the Indo-Pacific region, and focuses that attention on the region.
Maybe the reaction of China. China said that the AUKUS group could cause a huge impact in the stability of the Indo-Pacific. What's your opinion about it?
Well, I think, the People's Republic of China and the Chinese Communist Party is going to use any development that it thinks might be disadvantageous to China's interests, and it will criticize it. So giving or facilitating the development of nuclear powered submarines for the Royal Australian Navy, of course, that's going to give Australia capabilities that it previously didn't have, and capabilities that will potentially conflict with those of China, particularly as China is engaged in one of the largest naval build-ups in modern history. Besides the fact that it has made numerous excessive and illegitimate claims on a number of reefs and atolls in the South China Sea. So China will use anything it can, and it will position anything and frame anything it can in a negative light to achieve or secure its interests, which are often, rather different to almost any other country in the Indo-Pacific region. I think what's more interesting in this case is the degree of support that AUKUS has received from regional countries. Japan has welcomed it, India has welcomed it. A number of countries in Southeast Asia have either broadly welcomed it, or they've tried to balance a little bit, given they have a number of economic interests with China. But it seems generally to have been well received in the region. And a number of countries beyond have also looked favorably on it, some even in the Euro-Atlantic region. So I think that the Chinese response to this is not to be unexpected.
And finally, what do you think is the impact for other Indo-Pacific countries that are trying to maintain an independent position or line between the US and its allies and China?
Well, I think AUKUS in that respect, at least from an American standpoint, lays down a marker. It basically says that the United States, after the withdrawal from Afghanistan, is not retrenching from the world, and we've heard some arguments along those lines recently, that actually it's a case that the United States is trying to refocus its efforts and really push hard in the Indo-Pacific region to maintain a free and open Indo-Pacific. And although the United States or Australia or the UK are not really forcing countries to choose, they're certainly trying to create a new, I think, alignment in the region to help stabilize the region. So it is for other countries now to decide, well, how do they respond to this development? At the moment, there perhaps isn't a response to be had other than to express support or opposition to the development. But potentially, as AUKUS serves as that platform or that point for expansion or broadening into other areas, or even including other frameworks or other partners into the sort of broader grouping, whether it's the quadrilateral security dialogue or the treaty alliance system that the US operates in East Asia. That's something for them to think about. Now, I don't think the Americans or the British or the Australians are going to force or try and force anyone to do anything, but I certainly think it creates a new dynamic alignment that others have to, in some ways, respond to and think about. And also think about how it might develop in the years to come. There's nothing preordained in it. It's not going to necessarily develop into a NATO-like structure. That may not even be needed. But nonetheless, this is only the starting point. It's not, as I said earlier, the final destination.
Well, excellent, as usual. Thanks a lot, Jane, for your comments. And I think this AUKUS is gonna get our attention for many, many years. So good to see you. We talk soon.
Thank you.